Um, so we'll begin. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Krishna and Balaram meet the inhabitants of Vrindavan. Now, to set the context for this chapter, the Yadavas and many other kings met at Kurukshetra during a solar eclipse and discussed topics concerning Lord Krishna, and relates how Krishna met Nanda Maharaj and other residents of Vrindavan at Kurukshetra and gave them great joy. So that's uh, and so this is the return of Krishna and Balaram meeting the inhabitants of Vrindavan at Kurukshetra. Let me see. First, Om Ganaya Chakru Militam Ye Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Before we get to the verse, there's an interesting beginning to this chapter that's quite relevant in all regards. And what that is they're meeting at the time of a solar eclipse. Now, when the ancient seers would look at the sky, what were they looking for? Modern astronomers with the Webb or Hubble telescope are looking maybe life on another planet, an exoplanet, another planet orbiting another sun that resembles Earth, because they think life can only exist in the carbon oxygen form we see on Earth. They don't realize that life forms can exist in fire and all kinds of circumstances. We can discuss that if you like. So they're looking for that. And they're looking for how the heavens work. Up until modern times, there was great concerns with not how the heavens work, but how to get to heaven, how to have a communication with higher planets. So in those times, the main concern for astronomy was astrology and eclipses. There were certain auspicious and inauspicious times, and the ancients were much more tuned in to a more natural view of life. Take, for example, the American Indians. The American Indians worshiped nature, and they were very tuned into nature. You might say they were the original ecologists. Even when they would kill animals to eat, they would do it in such a way that they understood that it was a necessary evil. Some of the American Indian tribes actually thought like that, a necessary evil, but we need to survive. Even among the Jewish kosher laws, said when you kill an animal, you do it with compassion. Now, we may say it's never right to kill an animal, but even Prabhupada said differently. Sometimes it's a necessity. For example, the Kshatriyas would practice their skills. Inevitably, when they killed animals, there was also some karma that comes with it that was unpleasant, because it's best not to do it. But sometimes out of necessity, these things would happen. So what we're looking at is how did ancient civilizations, one moment, I got to still reset that computer. It decided to really freeze up today. I don't want to give the whole class on my cell phone. So I'm resetting it right now. That's one of the laws of nature, that when you least want a computer to crash, it crashes. It won't crash during normal times. Okay. So the ancients would do these very sophisticated calculations. They do to the minute when a lunar eclipse would occur, when a solar eclipse would occur, so that they could be more tuned into nature. American Indians were tuned into nature. We tend to get tuned out of nature. I'll give an example that we're going to put in the Temple of the Vedic Planetarium. Our Bhaktivedanta Institute's designing the content. If any of you have ever been out at sea, let's say on a cruise or on a boat a distance from land, you'll see a phenomenon that's quite wonderful. You'll see it's rare to see nowadays, the night sky unpolluted by light pollution. And almost all over the world, when you look at the night sky, you'll see a few stars, certainly a few planets. Jupiter, Mars, Venus are very obvious with the naked eye. And there's a few Alpha Centauri, a few stars that you see. But if you go out to sea, away from the land, away from the light pollution, you see millions of stars. It's quite a sight. I hope all of you have seen that, but maybe you haven't. And it's just quite a wonderful sight. And we're going to put that into the museum to show what the night sky looked like for the ancients. And when you look at that sky, you can't help but become very contemplative, very wondering about the universe and feeling somewhat insignificant. There was one story one time with Tamal Krishna Goswami, a Prabhupada story that's very good. It talks about the expanse of the universe. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj, in the early, a very, very powerful devotee, and I think that's what his Grahasta days or Brahmachari days even, and he was temple commander in the first LA temple. And he was a very powerful authority. And maybe as a very young man, I don't know, maybe 20 years old, Prabhupada felt it got to his head a little. So Prabhupada called him in and said, Tamal Krishna, there are thousands, look at the night sky, thousands and thousands of planets and stars out there. And then we have our one planet here, but we're just one out of thousands and millions, as you can see. And on this planet, there are thousands and thousands of cities. And we're in this one city of LA. And in the city of LA, there are thousands of blocks, and we're on this one block. And on this one block, there are so many buildings, and we're in this one little building, and you think you're so important. And he really put that in context. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj, who was his most loyal servant, really understood that. He understood that point very well, that yes, I really am insignificant. So looking at the night sky, it's to give us that humility. Now that we've basically light polluted it, we don't have that advantage of that contemplation. So that's how this chapter begins. Now we're going to go ahead to the particular verse. Let me recall that verse again is 82:39. So 82:39. And I again apologize. My computer's still not operating, and I'm trying to do this off a cell phone, which is quite awkward for me. Okay. Sri Sukho Vacha Gopayascha Krishnam Upalabha Charad Abhishtam Yad Prekshana Drishu Pakshma Kirtam Shapanti. Sukadev Goswami said, while gazing at their beloved Krishna, the young gopis used to condemn the creator of their eyelids, which would momentarily block their division of him. Now seeing Krishna again after such a long separation with their eyes, they took him into their hearts, and therefore they embraced him to their full satisfaction. In this way, they became totally absorbed in the static meditation on him. Although those who constantly practice mystic yoga may find such absorption difficult to achieve. When I was preparing for the class and looked at this verse, that last sentence struck me so deeply. Just imagine that. I'm still trying on my computer. I apologize. Those who in this way, they became totally absorbed. Although those who constantly practice Mr. Yoga find such absorption difficult to achieve. And this is the essence of what's going on here. If we just meditate on Krishna, we get all the benefits of mystic yoga. Now, what are some of the benefits of mystic yoga? One time, Prabhupada was asked, do you have any mystic yoga abilities? And Prabhupada said, oh, I have the greatest mystic yoga ability of all. The greatest. Hardly any yoga ever gets this ability. And devotees were thinking, oh, Prabhupada can make a mountain float. He can become so tiny. He can walk with inside an atom. Who knows what amazing mystic ability he has. He could float. He could do this. What was it? Prabhupada, what was that mystic ability? And Prabhupada said, it is so rare that hardly any yogi can achieve it. What is it, Prabhupada? What is it? And Prabhupada said, I can be alone in a room with many naked women and have zero disturbance. And it is the rarest of yoga abilities. So in this way, they become totally absorbed in ecstatic meditation. All those who constantly practice mystic yoga find such absorption difficult to achieve. And those who do mystic yoga will never achieve what Prabhupada achieved, because the only way we can achieve is by a much higher taste. Now, when I was a very new, aspiring devotee back from India, I didn't understand the power of the deity. And that was somewhat bewildering for me. Because I was brought up in a Jewish household, and one of the 10 commandments is don't worship a graven image. And therefore, there was a natural reaction to, is there something wrong with deity worship? But at the same time, the deity was so attractive. And how can marble be God? It was a very bewildering experience. So I went to one senior devotee and I said, I'm having trouble relating to deity worship. What do I do? And the devotee said, here's what you do. You start worshiping at the deity's feet. This was Radha Govinda in New York. Start at the deity's feet. Just look at the deity's feet. And just contemplate. Gradually, and then chant the Maha Mantra. And slowly, very slowly, you may not even do it the same day, your glance will move up the deity till the Lord's face, and you're going to get a realization. And my thought was, ha! Yeah, might ever. So I did it. I guess the devotee was right, because I got the realization that the deity is not ordinary, that God can manifest in any way, including that way. It's just like the example Prabhupada gave. You can put many boxes on the street and you drop a letter in it, nothing happens. But you put it in the right box, the mailbox, it can go anywhere in the world in a matter of even days. So similarly, it was explained to me that the deity was the authorized form, and it became so. There was another story, similar story, and this will fit very well within the verse. I was, again, an aspiring devotee, maybe less than that, but interested. Was in Juhu. I had met Prabhupada, and I'd resigned my position to come back to America, because once I met Prabhupada, I had accomplished what I wanted to in India. So I was in Bombay to check out, and I was staying on the roof of the Juhu temple. The Juhu, not temple, there was no temple. There were apartment buildings, and devotees had no apartments. All we had was a terrace on the roof with tents and an outhouse way back in the woods, in the swampy area of the property that I can't even describe to you how bad it was. There was bucket baths. There was nothing, no facility whatsoever. So it was a little austere, but when we're 22, we don't mind those austerities. Now it would probably kill me, but that's a different story. And we're on the roof of the building, so Mangal Arti, so we're all sleeping on the roof. So naturally at 4:30, there's Mangal Arti. You have no choice but to be up, otherwise people will step on you. And that's where the Artik is. And then after Artik, they do something so weird. They pull out a plant and they say, we're going to dance around a plant. And I'm staring at this, thinking, what the heck's going on? I never heard anybody dancing around a plant before. Of course, obviously Tulsi. I said, this. So I'm watching this 5 o'clock in the morning, people happily dancing around a plant. I said, this is weird. But I'm trying to figure it out, scratching my head, what's going on. So Sarabi Swami walks up to me and goes, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm trying to figure this one out. I really don't understand what's going on here, but I'm observing. I'm trying to understand it. He goes, you are like the person with a jar of honey, and you're licking the outside of the jar, and you trying to figure out what's inside. It will never work. You better open the jar. Dance. I said, you want me to dance around a plant? He goes, yep. Okay, I'll dance around a plant. I mean, what am I going to do? You know? So I start dancing around the Tulsi plant, 5 in the morning on the roof of the Juhu temples. Sun hasn't even arisen yet. It's a cool, crisp air. And he was ecstatic, felt something. It wasn't just a plant. There was something special going on. I said, wow, you can open this jar of honey. You can really taste it. And to a large degree, that's what we're talking about here, is when the gopis would gaze upon Krishna, they actually develop that taste. They develop that deep relationship. So what's going on here is how to develop that deep relationship with Krishna. Now we're going to jump to the purport. I'm going to try one more time just for a moment, see if I can get this computer to finally cooperate with me. It's thinking about it, but it's not quite there yet. Still thinking about it. Okay, back to the cell phone. According to Vishwanath Chakravarti, just then Lord Balaram saw the gopis standing a short distance away. Seeing them trembling with eagerness to meet Krishna and apparently ready to give up their lives if they could not, he tactfully decided to get up and involve himself elsewhere. Then the gopis attained the state described in the current verse. In referring to the gopis' intolerant disrespect of Lord Brahma, the creator of eyelids, Sukadeva is giving vent to his own subtle jealousy of the gopis' favored position. Even Sukadeva was thinking, little subtle jealousy of the gopis, so favored. They curse Brahma for giving eyelids, because eyelids mean you blink, and in that blink, that microsecond, they can't see Krishna. Wow. When I look at the deities, I'm not quite at the stage where I curse my eyelids, but that's the goal. Do any of you curse your eyelids when you're with the deities? That is the amazing state of the gopis. I think none of us can claim to be quite there yet. Srila Jiva Goswami offers an alternative understanding of the phrase Nitya Yujam, which may mean even of the Lord's principal queens who tend to be proud of their constant association with him. In Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Srila Prabhupada writes, because they've been separated from Krishna for so many years, the gopis have come along with Nanda Maharaj and Yasoda. The devotees, having come along with Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yasoda, felt intense ecstasy in seeing Krishna. No one can even imagine how anxious the gopis were to see Krishna again. As soon as Krishna became visible to them, they took him inside their hearts, through their eyes, and embraced him to their full satisfaction. Even though they were embracing Krishna only mentally, they became so ecstatic and overwhelmed with joy that for the time being, they completely forgot themselves. The ecstatic trance which they achieved simply by mentally embracing Krishna is impossible to achieve even for the great yogis constantly engaged in meditation on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna can understand the gopis were wrapped in ecstasy by embracing him in their minds, and therefore, since he is present in everyone's heart, he is also reciprocating the embracing from within. So we have here this description of the unusual position of the gopis who curse their eyelids and just mentally thinking of Krishna become completely absorbed, forgetting their bodies. So how does this apply to all of us here? How many of you can just think of Krishna and forget about your bodies, forget about that itch on your face that's bothering you like anything? Just forget everything about your bodies, forget about having to eat or sleep, just forget it all. We can't imitate the gopis. We're not in that position. But we can follow in their footsteps. So I'll tell a story that will put this in context. I've shared this story before, but I think it's even worth repeating. I had an amazing experience in Vrindavan. Vrindavan's a scary place to me. Mayapur is very relaxed. You go there, Lord Chaitanya is very merciful. There's no rules and regulations, just chant Hare Krishna and be happy. At least that was my relationship with Mayapur. Vrindavan was a little heavier. So concerned you don't want to commit any offenses. It's a heavier place. And it used to be, when I first went to Vrindavan, it really was like a village. The Raman Reti was so far out of town. Now Raman Reti is surrounded by high-rise buildings and crowds of people you could never imagine. When I first went to Vrindavan in the 70s, it was so far out of town. Prabhupada was, when he bought the land, he said, Chutananda said, yes, Prabhupada, we'll make our headquarters Radha Damodar in downtown Vrindavan, and we'll build something little at Raman Reti because it's so far from the main temples. And Prabhupada turned to him and says, I never do anything little. This will be a big temple. And it became almost the center of Vrindavan now, with wall-to-wall people almost year-round. So going to Vrindavan, I went in 16 and 17 to try to get deeper into Vrindavan. I said, how can I enter Vrindavan? What does it take to enter Vrindavan? And because I was a little nervous of the place. And it had changed so much that it was a little harder to see the unseen hand of Krishna. There's Bollywood music and unlimited tourist buses coming. And how am I going to, the forests are mostly all gone, deforested. How am I going to relate to this Vrindavan of Krishna? Bewildered me. So I said, well, the only way to do it is to prepare. So I prepared by reading special books, Shivaram Swami's pastime books, which are brilliantly written, Satchidananda Swami's books about connecting with the holy name. And so I took a serious study of these books before going. Maybe that will work. Then when I got there, Borijan Prabhu gave me particular shelter, which was very, every day we'd meet for lunch and give me instructions how to see Vrindavan. In Vrindavan, the unseen hand of Krishna starts becoming a little visible. And by doing a lot of contemplation before going, by taking good mentorship when there, the unseen hand of Krishna started becoming a little visible. I would call my brother every day, as I always do from Vrindavan, and he would say, "What kind of town are you in?" Because wherever you call me from, I would say I'm downtown, I'm here, I'm there. Say, wherever you call me from, in the background, I hear chanting. That's Vrindavan. Wherever you go, you hear Jai Radhe, you hear Hare Krishna, wherever you go. And I said, I'm in a mystical town, and the unseen hand of God is becoming a little visible, little bit. Like some of you may have seen the movie, it's from the 50s, The Invisible Man. It was based on a book by H.G. Wells, and this man found a way to become invisible. And I think he had to wear nothing, just his body became invisible. And so people, and he was doing some crimes of some kind, so people had to find him. But if they sprinkled powder around, then they would see his form where he was. You could see his footprints because he was still alive. This is H.G. Wells' novel, The Invisible Man. So while in Vrindavan, I was thinking, it's like that. It's like an H.G. Wells novel. The unseen hand of Krishna is a little, when you're in Vrindavan, a little bit of powder is around and you start seeing, yeah, you can see that Krishna's really there. That really happened. So this vision the gopis have of actually seeing Krishna through the deity, through being in Vrindavan, through the holy name, it is really possible for us. And that was such a wonderful realization. After being a devotee a half a century, I wondered, will I ever really see Krishna? And then going to Vrindavan, getting instructions from sadhus. Yes, it is possible. Now, we're going to digress a little and tell another story that will put this in a context. Devotees ask me this question. I'm the director of the Bhaktivedanta Institute. They ask this challenging question all the time after class. I've had this asked to me right in Vrindavan. Here's the question. Did we go to the moon? We could take a vote. Whoever thinks we went to the moon, there's no wrong answer. Raise your virtual hand so I can see. Who thinks we went to the moon? Who thinks we didn't go to the moon? Who thinks we didn't go? Okay. Would you like to know the answer? This has a lot to do with what I'm talking about. Sariputta, the genius among us, the great scientist, he passed on a decade ago, but he's written many books and was the true genius. He and I we would be together every day for decades. He said they could not have gone to the moon because as they're traveling to the moon, NASA would broadcast the position and speed. And he was such a mathematical genius, he plotted it out. And he said that course would never take us to the moon. So he says that we didn't go. Then later on, he said, well, if I was NASA, would I want to tell the Soviets how to get there? So he says, of course, NASA was going to lie about these things. So that's not really evidence because during the Soviet times, during the Cold War, lie about everything. The only street map of Moscow that was accurate was published by the CIA, because all the maps published by the Soviets had false streets because the Soviets thought America was going to invade, and they didn't want to use that map to help the soldiers if they invaded Moscow. They were that paranoid after World War II. So it's not unusual for CIA and government to lie about things. So Sadhgupta says, yeah, they lied. So that evidence didn't tell me if they went or didn't go. Then a metal plate was put on the moon by an astronaut and a laser beam bounced off. And Sadhgupta says, that really did happen. So somebody must have gone there. And then you take all the statements of Prabhupada, and about 45% of the statements say, if they went to the moon and got a bag of rocks, what a waste of money. If they went, they couldn't enter the atmosphere because I had to use spacesuits. Then the other little over half the statements say, no, they couldn't have gone to the moon. It's a heavenly planet. So how do we reconcile these differences? Well, I can tell you, going to Vrindavan taught me how to reconcile it. Would you like to know that realization? I can share that with you. And I worked so hard going to Vrindavan. Like I said, I read a lot of books. I took shelter of Satyananda Swami and Borajan Prabhu and Ritavaja Swami. They guided me. I mean, I really worked at it because I said, this is something I need to do in my spiritual list. You might say my bucket list was to not be scared of Vrindavan, but to appreciate it. That's just personal with me. Then while I'm there, I see these tourist bus comes. When I first went to Vrindavan, there was no such thing. Now every day, hundreds and hundreds of tourist bus come. Tourists get off the bus. They take a picture of a sadhu, take a picture of a pig, take a picture of a deity, get back on the bus and go back to Vrindavan. Could they have the same experience I had? No. Why? Because they didn't have the visa. When by visa, I mean I got the visa by taking shelter of senior devotees, reading books, etc., chanting extra rounds, whatever way. These people visiting didn't do the austerities, so they couldn't see the same Vrindavan I saw. To them, the pig in the street eating stool was just as much Vrindavan as seeing Krishna, because they didn't have the visa. Similarly, let us say, and this has happened to friends of mine, you land at New Delhi airport, and then you go to the customs, the immigration people. Prabhupada used to call them barking dogs. Get off my land, get off my land. And so you go to the customs, the immigration, and they say, sorry, you don't have the right visa. We're not letting you into India. You're going home on the next plane. And that happens. Hasn't happened to me, but it's happened to friends of mine. And you ask why, they'll never tell you why. They just say it's not right. Well, what's wrong? We can't tell you. That's typical. Then you wait, you go home. Now, did that person go to India or not? They never left the transit lounge. So you can say, yes, they went to India, but they didn't have the right visa. So they never entered the atmosphere of India. They never quite made it all the way into India. So from one point of view, yes, they went to India. They landed at Indira Gandhi Airport and they were technically on Indian soil, but they never left the transit lounge and they never really entered India. In a similar way, as in my understanding, just take it as mine, is as Prabhupada said, they didn't have the right visa. They could not enter the atmosphere of India. They couldn't really, of the moon, they really couldn't see the celestial aspects of the moon. Yet, they could have physically gone there, but they, without the right visa, were stuck in a bulky suit and couldn't really see the real moon. And I knew from my teenage days it was a real moon, because when I was a teenager, for 2 summers, I worked in a hospital as an orderly. And great experience for me, because growing up in America, you don't see birth, death, old age, and disease. And working in a hospital, you get it all the time. It was like a Buddha type awakening to see what the human experience was like. But that's a digression. While I was at the hospital, anytime there was a full moon, we would assign extra staff to the emergency room. They would say, Bob, you're going to have to work an extra shift in the emergency room. It's a full moon. Why? Because it was a full moon, the lunatics come out. I mean, that's where the word lunatic comes from. On a full moon, they come out. And we would always need extra staff because things would get weird on a full moon night, especially in a hospital. So many mental illnesses would show up that normally didn't show up. And any hospital worker knows the moon has potency. Any farmer knows you have to plant by the moon. So to say the moon has a special potency doesn't take much to figure that out. But going there to understand that potency without the right visa, it cannot be seen. So similarly, if we want to really see Krishna as the gopis are seeing, we want to get in that position where if we blink our eyes, we want to curse Brahma, we need the right circumstances. And the right circumstances is deep meditation on the form, pastimes, about Krishna. It's deep meditation on Krishna's name not being different than Krishna. And by that deep meditation, that's how we get this division, which the mystic yogis can never achieve. Radhanath Swami tells a story. Many of you read Journey Home. He went up into the mountains. And he went up into the mountains to meet these mystic yogis, and he met them. They could float, they could do all kinds of things. But they could not satisfy the yearning in his heart. And when he went to Vrindavan, the yearning in his heart becomes satisfied because he was looking for Krishna. It's a beautiful story. Those who haven't read the book, I strongly recommend it. It really gives what it was like. I went to India the same time as Radhanath Swami with the similar goal, though I didn't practice the tremendous austerities he practiced, so I didn't get as deep a realization. But it was a great time to go to India to look for something more mystical. Because if you liked it or not, in those days, there was a lot of austerity in India. And austerity, as we know, is the wealth of the Brahmins. So right now, it's my time. I didn't leave enough time for questions. So I'm going to stop here and answer any questions you have. And again, I apologize on my cell phone, awkward time for a computer crash, but it happened. Yes, it says Min Kim.
Thank you so much. I've only heard you speak on recordings from YouTube, so to hear you in real time was such a blessing. I wanted to ask, being relatively new to Bhakti Path, you spoke a lot about realizations. And I like to ask, this deep relationship with Krishna in many ways seems like are provided by these realizations we have. I wanted to know if you could speak a little bit about the relationship between the realizations and our sadhana. And also wanted to ask if the realizations we're getting are similar to or part of having a clear vision or seeing Krishna.
You've asked a very deep question, actually. It's very, very deep. In the very beginning of devotional service, you get a special blessing. It's easy. The realizations come in waves. The ecstasy comes in waves. It's very easy. Later on, you have to fight harder for it. So in the beginning of devotional service, and I'm a little jealous of someone who's beginning, because all of a sudden, nothing's complicated. Just chant Hare Krishna and be happy Yes, and sadhana will help me. I'll do sadhana. Everything is so easy. Later on, we get in habits, and when we get in habits, we get a routine. And a sadhana can be a good routine, but sadhana can also become mindless. Okay, we're just chanting, we're doing this, we're doing that, and we get further from Krishna. So in the beginning, you had that blessing where, and so many devotees had the same story. Where, wow, the taste is there. Then later on, you have to fight a little harder for the taste. That's normal. So sadhana is gives us keeps us in our lane. When you're driving down the road, you want to stay in the lane. Now, the newer cars have these devices that if you're drifting out of the lane, it beeps at you. Beep, beep, beep. You're drifting out, or your steering wheel shakes, or whatever. And so, when we're practicing our sadhana and we start drifting out of the lane, becoming mindless, not doing it, uh, a certain beep, beep will occur. And that beep, beep is our material desires will start welling up. And we feel our material desires start welling up. That's like our warning. Oops, we're not in our lane very well. What can I do to get back in my lane? Because when I first was chanting, I had such an ecstatic taste. Now it's a little harder for me to get it. And that's normal. Does that answer your question? Yeah. I mean, there's a lot more that can be said about that because you've asked a critically important question, but at least we can give a little something. We have time, I think, for one more question, according to my phone clock. Does anybody else have a question, a comment, a criticism, or a good joke?
Brahmatirtha Prabhu, a
Yes.
follow-up question on sadhana. What does it literally mean, sadhana? And can sadhana be practiced alone, or should it be practiced together with other devotees?
Okay, literally is I would have to get a Sanskritist to help me with that. That's not my specialty. So, I mean, I kind of know what it means, but that's not my expertise. So let me punt on that to someone who knows better. Can sadhana be practiced alone or in a group? And the answer to that is yes.
Thank you.
And there's a saying, different slokes for different folks. So some people do very well with their sadhana alone. I like chanting japa by myself. Other people love a temple room with 30 people chanting and just being part of that because that works. So we're all individuals with individual desires. And so what works for you is the best sadhana. And so,
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you
yeah,
very much.
so it is not one size fits all.
Thank you. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
I think, let me see, there's a
It's
chat here.
darshan time. It's darshan time. We're going to be
Let's go
seen by
on.
the Lord.
So thank you very much. I'm sorry for this cell phone thing, but nature
Thank
of
you,
the
Prabhu.
world. Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Brahmatirtha Prabhu. Thank you. Okay, darshan time. Turn on your cameras, please. You had enough time to change from your pajamas into your best look. Yeah, there you are.
Shri Radha Murida Gaura Chanchan So Bhagwan Ki Jai, Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna, welcome to the Afterglow. Narottam Nitai Prabhu, would you like to unmute yourself and speak? You put something very nice in the chat.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, I was just reflecting a little bit. I don't know if Prabhuji is still here. But yeah, no, I wanted to ask for Prabhuji, like, what was the right amount of austerity between chanting seva and reading? Anyways, like I said, this has been my pertinent question as I keep trying to execute my devotional service. I really appreciate Srila Prabhupada, and I wonder how I should conduct myself as like someone who's like more like a scholar who writes down realizations, or a simple man who's living close to the temple and executing devotional service. And I just said it seems like a very nuanced yet adaptive response. And I guess this also comes in the form of like stability too, because does everyone become like you know act in a more reserved fashion and writes down their realizations, and then um uh, and acts exactly as uh, as their guru wants them to, or are people more like expressive and in their devotional life, um and and find satisfaction in doing seva at the temple or the dham, etc. So I don't know. It was just more like a random question, because I think for me, as things keep changing for me, my places of where I live, what I do for work, and different places I go, I just feel I have to adapt everywhere I go, and that requires austerity to be in order to adapt. It's a good thing to be able to adapt, but it's also uh, important to know where we find our greatest expression and greatest, I guess you could say, continued growth, whether we are grihastas or brahmacharis. And it's something to, I guess, reflect upon. It was more of one of those reflective questions, not necessarily to be answered. But yeah,
Wow.
Hare
So
Krishna.
can we reflect on your reflection just quickly?
Sure. Go ahead, Krishna.
Yeah. See, Krishna is unique, and being part and parcel of Krishna, so are you. And there's only one Narottam Nitai. Do not adapt too much, Narottam Nitai. Krishna needs you, and Srila Prabhupada loves you for you. Adaptation, is a social norm, social strategy, yes, to some extent to function, but ultimately Krishna needs you, Krishna needs your unique offering, whether it's scholarly or, simple or both. Why not be both? Scholar doesn't mean somebody who lives far away from the temple, knows all the shlokas, and conducts himself like a big time scholar. It's a Vaishnava. You'll notice is a very. They're always very simple, approachable. There's no arrogance there. So do not adapt too much. That's my humble request as a friend. We need you, Nartam Nitai. We need you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Prabhuji. Haribol. Gauranga. Yeah, that's also
Jai.
echoed by my friends from high school. I had a different name, but you're right. People remember us for who we are.
Yeah, yeah,
100%
yeah,
true.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Imagine you put somebody like Adipusha Prabhu in the office cubicle and make him do spreadsheets. It'll be a disaster. Adipusha Prabhu, would you like to speak? I would have teased Bhima, but since he's not here, I'm teasing you. You ever worked in the cubicle? Ever wore suit and tie and everything? Shoes? Yes? How did that go? When did they realize who you were? Please unmute yourself. Yeah.
Well, there's more to it than how you dress. We are conditioned by the expectations and standards that our employers give. I'd like to comment on the class, wonderful class. Is that possible?
Please, of course.
Yeah, it's so clear that Srila Prabhupada has touched his heart and drawn him into being satisfied, excited, absorbed in doing things to please Krishna. His whole life. It's so wonderful to see a devotee like that. And there was a question asked about sadhana and entering into the real experience of the holy Dham, Vrindavan, and how the gopis, they're just so totally deeply in love with Krishna, right? And it says you can't take a bus or get a plane ticket to get to Vrindavan. It's like you can't go to the moon with the rocket ship because it's a celestial atmosphere that can be entered only with proper consciousness. Then Krishna arranges that. So what happens, Srila Prabhupada explains to us, it's not that we get there, it's not that we get to see Krishna, but Bhakti Mama Vajananti, that Krishna reveals himself. That Krishna can reveal himself to us. By my tiny efforts, I can't actually see Krishna. But if we are trying to please Krishna, Krishna reciprocates with that. So wonderful. And then there was one comment that he made about somebody asked Srila Prabhupada about his mystic powers. And he said, well, he would be able to be in the presence of girls without clothes on, and he wouldn't be affected. I heard somebody else ask Srila Prabhupada that question. And Prabhupada responded in a slightly different way. He said, yes, by the grace of my spiritual master, there are miracles. And these devotees.
I think they asked Prabhupada to manifest an apple or something. Or they manifested an apple and
Okay,
asked Prabhupada to.
you have what you think. I'm just going to tell you what I
Okay.
heard.
I'm sorry.
Fine. And they said, Prabhupada, what mystic power? And he said, these devotees are my mystic power. Oh God. Can you hear me okay? We froze
Yeah,
up.
yeah. We heard the
These
punchline.
devotees are a manifestation of my mystic power that I've been able to, by the grace of my spiritual master, direct them, inspire them, encourage them to give their life, to give up degrading and frivolous activities, and to engage in Krishna service and be satisfied in devotional service. That's what I understand is my miracle. And that's true. And by that, engaging in devotional service, Krishna is revealed to us, the Holy Dhamma is revealed to us, and Ahetukiya Pratiyata, unceasing, unmotivated devotional service to Krishna is the only thing that will satisfy the self. Anyway, I'm just repeating what I heard from Guru, if that's okay. Oh, glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you, Adipusha Prabhu. Perfect. Your contributions are always nice and Shastric and Prabhupada oriented.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I'm only telling you what I heard from him.
You are Srila Prabhupada's miracle.
That's a miracle. That's true. That he could take somebody who's useless and is crazy and is full of mistakes as me and find some way to engage me in devotional service. That is Prabhupada's miracle. Thank you so much for glorifying him.
Jai Srila Prabhupada. Krishna Kumari.
Yeah, so I was in Vrindavan last time was 1999, and when I was there, I would tell all the Babajis that were there, I'll be back. In 2012, I was thinking it's the next big Kumbh Mela, but I would come with my kids. I wouldn't go to Kumbh Mela, but I'd be back to Vrindavan. And it never happened. I even got an inheritance. I was homeschooling my kids. My husband didn't want me to go for whatever reason, didn't get there. And so last weekend, I was telling the kids that Radha Muralidhar are Vrindavan. Prabhupada established Vrindavan all over the world. And I can't get you to Vrindavan. And now it's been another 13 years, and there's another big Kumbh Mela. But we're going to go see Radha Muralidhar, and you're going to be in Vrindavan. And that's just what happened. It was so ecstatic. And Radha Muralidhar drank the milk that night from our cow. My children are now, my daughter taught herself her. My son's been playing drum to, mridanga to support her. And yeah, there was just something so magical there with Radha Muralidhar. Like, I just was bursting with tears. There was so much joy. Prabhupada gave us Vrindavan. It's right here, right in New York City.
Yeah. Srila Prabhupada established Vrindavan all over the world. I like it. Thank you, Krishna Kumari. Krishna Kumari is the ambassador of Vrindavan in upstate New York. Her Excellency Krishna Kumari, ambassador extraordinary and plenipotentiary of spiritual world. Hare Krishna. Okay, Vinisha. Vinisha, would you like to speak? I like your hat. Are you in Bhima's Sampradaya? Is that Bhima's influence?
No, actually, I'm in Krishna Kumari's Sampradaya. I'm at the Platic Hill service station on the New York Thruway charging my electric vehicle right now and just relishing this Sangha like I do every day. And I think that there was a wonderful lecture and so many things came to me. Maybe just that point about austerity being the wealth of the Brahmanas, and the point that was made that, Radhanath Swami really engaged in very intense austerities and therefore had deeper realization that's kind of like a mathematical ratio, like he was talking about the trajectory to the moon is sort of a mathematical ratio. It sort of occurred to me that to the extent that we perform austerities and sanely, right, and maybe a little insanely sometimes too, that is the concomitant whatever equivalent depth of our realization. And so that was very inspiring, the way he said that, and just had me reflecting. And also reflecting that austerities at age 22 were definitely something that you kind of just took head on. And maybe now I wonder, like, if I would be up to the bucket bath. I think so. I was very inspired by that. So
Please keep us posted, Vinisha. We want to know how that went.
I think I'll try an austerity today with just Adi serving in Tompkins Square Park. It's just so cold, as you know. Definitely.
I asked him the other day, it's so cold, Adipusha Prabhu, is it happening? And Adi said, It is going to happen. It is going to
Yeah.
happen. He was so confident, and there was
Yeah.
no false ego there. It was, my service is going to happen. My
So good.
service is going to be ahoitaki apatiyata.
Yeah. That's like you every day with this sangha.
No,
So
for no, no,
come,
no.
come
So for Adi is a service. For me, it's like circus. You know, I'm the benefactor.
Haribol. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Venetia. Thank you very much. Yeah, we do austerities in bhakti, not for the sake of strengthening our body, you know, or achieving something. We do austerities to please Krishna.
Mm.
Austerities are appropriate if they're done with in the
Yeah.
proper state of mind as an offering to Krishna. And if we read the book, The Journey Home, where Radhanath Maharaj describes his austerities, the consciousness there was always, I want to get to the bottom of it. I'm seeking the absolute truth, and I'm
Thank
doing
you.
it in the name of the absolute truth. As far as I can remember. Thank you, Venetia, for bringing this up. That
Got
point of
props.
austerity.
I heard the props from Ram there.
Yeah, he's helping.
And I was, Jai Ram. I was thinking, such beautiful eyes. I was thinking, your kind of, rasa, your kind of joke that you're just always around a full moon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm a nut.
No, lunatic.
Yeah, lunatic. Yeah. Yeah. Happy nut. That's a better term. All right. So before we drift too far from the Bhagavatam, would anyone like to say Hare Krishna? How about Danakeli Prabhu? Danakeli Prabhu, please, if you can. I know you may be in the office or something.
Hare Krishna.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. That was so sweet and sincere. Thank you, Danakeli Prabhu. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you again.